Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, we'll be talking about all things entertainment and media law with a nationally recognized attorney. That's just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, I have to confess, I've always been fascinated by entertainment and media law. I think about Ice Ice Baby by Vanilla Ice and how he lifted some of that from Queen, and there's a famous lawsuit related to that. Don't know how much he had to pay Queen for that. I'd be interested to find out. But to talk about all things media and entertainment, Tamera Bennett, she's a very successful trademark attorney, mediator, and the owner of Bennett Law. Thank you for coming on the show.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited we were able to make this work out.
Well, it's a fascinating subject, and because we're so enamored with celebrities, I bet you get dozens of questions when you're at a cocktail party and you tell people what you do. But I want to find out your journey, because you told me that in college you were actually an anchor at the local public access television or student station?
I did. I actually have a degree in recording industry studies from Middle Tennessee State University right outside of Nashville. And part of what I did with that was co-hosted the local college noon talk show a couple of times, did some radio work, and often look back now many years later and think, well, that would have been an interesting path. Not that I haven't had a wonderful path going down the route of music business and then becoming a lawyer.
It feels like old times.
Yeah, this really did bring back some memories. Your setup is a little nicer than it was 30 years ago on campus, though.
Thank you. I'll take that. Now, you moved to Nashville, and then you had a chance to work with the great Ronnie Millsap.
I did.
What was that like?
It was wonderful. I actually grew up just right outside of Nashville in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, home of Charlie Daniels, another famous country artist. What I didn't realize was growing up, I actually went to school with a lot of kids of famous musicians because we were so close to Nashville. But yeah, I just had a great experience working for Ronnie Millsap's production company, his producer, Rob Galbraith, who's been with him for decades. I at one time booked musicians for his recording sessions, worked with songwriters who wrote hit songs that either he performed or other people performed. Just a really great experience learning the ins and outs of the music publishing business, the music production business, how to run a small business, which kind of circles forward for me many decades. It's where I am today. Just really a wonderful time in my life as a young adult working in Nashville on Music Row.
And Ronnie Millsap, nice guy?
Wonderful. Great to work with, kind and generous, his whole family, his whole team.
I love to hear that. And then you became chapter governor for the Recording Academy. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so fast forward a couple of decades, moved to the Dallas area and building my entertainment and media law practice, and got involved with the Grammys, which is the Recording Industry Association. They do more than the Grammy Awards. And I elected as a non-voting member, because I don't have creative credits, but I work in the industry, to be a governor. Started that back several years ago, and then just re-elected back in 2020 to serve on the board for 2 years.
And Tamera was telling me before we went on that there's actually 2 red carpets. she's spilling the tea.
Yeah, so I've been honored to attend the Grammy Awards multiple times, my husband and I, and walk the red carpet. And what you may not realize is, well, there is really one very large red carpet. There is a dividing line. and if you're not famous or nominated, you walk down the other side. But that's
got you.
okay. That's okay. It's still the red carpet, and it's still an amazing experience to go to the awards.
And you launched a very popular entertainment law podcast, and you were telling me before the show that you were really one of the first to market with this.
Yeah, so myself and Gordon Firemark, he is the co-host with me, and he's the one that really had the initial idea for this podcast. And what's interesting is our story is he and I met on Twitter because we were some of the first attorneys on social media at all. This is late 2000s, and we've been co-hosting this podcast together over 135 episodes, once a month, 10 years, more than 10 years. It really is amazing. And we have a team of contributors that help us pull together the stories, format the event, format the rundown for each episode. And we talk about everything that's happening in the legal world related to entertainment, trademark, copyright, right of publicity. You name it, and we've probably talked about it over the years.
And you were doing podcasting before podcasting was cool, because I think back 10 years ago, like, podcasting was a phrase that most people didn't even know.
People didn't even understand what we were doing. I mean, we did have to kind of say, well, it's a little bit like we've recorded a show for the radio, but you listen on the internet.
Right.
And now, even my mother knows I do a podcast, so and could probably find it and listen to it. So it is. I look back and think we were really cutting edge at the time. He and I both. I've had a blog for that amount of time. There weren't very many lawyers writing a blog. I mean, not even very many had a website. And then the podcast, and really all of the things I've been able to pull together on that front. And again, that's the space where my clients are at. So it makes sense that I'm doing those things because they're doing those things.
And the media will turn to you for interviews. You were interviewed recently, I'm trying to remember, in Des Moines about the Black Widow lawsuit.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So actress Scarlett Johansson filed a lawsuit against Disney related to her performance for the Black Widow. Contractually, she actually signed a deal with Marvel Media. And the film was supposed to have a theatrical release. Well, enter COVID, theatrical releases, delayed. She was very concerned, and I think this is what makes the case interesting. She was very concerned before COVID that perhaps it might get released on Disney Plus and not have a release at the movies where we go and buy our ticket and get our popcorn and sit down and watch it. And that's exactly what happened. So she sued Disney saying, you interfered with my contract with Marvel. You should not have released the movie the same day in the theater as you did on Disney Plus, where anybody could stream it over and over again. So she's out front on this one. There's going to be plenty of other actors and actresses follow suit, I believe, because lots of her compensation was tied to the box office numbers and how much money was made in the box office, and that number is going to be substantially reduced because for $30, we can watch it on Disney Plus over and over again.
I can see why you're so good, because you're fascinated by this stuff, aren't you?
I am. I tell people I have the most fun job and I have the most fun clients. I have officed with my dearest friend for the last 20 plus years. We went to law school together. She has a wonderful practice doing estate planning and real estate. But hands down, I have the most fun clients. And we talk about that often. She's like, you have the best clients.
I want to talk to you about another issue that's in the news, because we've heard a lot about it lately, that student athletes are able to now profit from their name and likeness.
Yeah, that's been huge, Jeff. So really, there's some out there about a Supreme Court decision, which is important. But what I really think is the turning point for athletes happened around the U.S. on July 1st. Which was when many states, 20 plus, had new laws come into play saying that student athletes could profit from their name, image, and likeness. The NCAA also issued their own guidelines saying, well, if you are in a state without a law, then you can also profit. California led the way a couple of years ago passing that law, but Texas has passed it as well as many others. And it is in some ways the Wild West because every state has a law, every higher ed institution has a rule or regulation. So The guidelines at UNT may be different from the ones at UT, from Texas Tech, from UCLA, from the University of Oklahoma. So what I'm seeing for businesses who want to be involved is we've got a fine line to dance as to where they have to provide and put together offers for student athletes that are in compliance with the most restrictive guidelines.
Sure.
And so it's fun. I've done a lot of right of publicity work, which is the same thing because you have a right of publicity. Your name, image, and likeness has been used in the public. It's valuable. These student athletes, it's the value of their name, image, and likeness. The quarterback from our local Southlake High School has received substantial licensing.
Sure.
Just this week it's come out in the last 2 weeks for his name, image, and likeness.
I mean, does that mean they can go on Instagram and hold up a Coke and make money?
Yes, it can be. What's also interesting, and this is where they've got to comply with the regulations of their school, is if their school is sponsored by Coke, that could be great. If their school is Pepsi Cola,
right,
can't do that. They're also very limited. They can't appear in most of the regulations. They can't appear in their jersey. There's no indicia of the school in how they appear.
Got it. So fascinating.
Yeah.
I want to brag about your office because it's not in some ivory tower in downtown Dallas. It's in historic downtown Louisville.
Yeah.
And you love this office.
I love this office. I've been there for 20 Have we been there 20 years? I've been in Old Town Louisville since 2001, in that particular office since 2004. It's over 100 years old.
Wow.
There are times when the mortar falls out of the bricks.
Really?
But I like I said, I office with another attorney and our two staffs. We love it. Just really love the feel of it. I invite anyone to come down to Old Town Louisville. It's been revitalized and just lots of neat stuff happening. I love it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being, in downtown Dallas or downtown Fort Worth, but it really fits me and what I do.
Wow, you have been an amazing guest. We're going to end by putting up